It is the middle of a quiet night in the southern border of Skyrim, along the road to Falkreath, looking for your next adventure. Suddenly, a rustle can be heard from the trees as an injured man comes out, wearing what looks to be farmer's clothes, but injured and seeking help. "Ah, you must help me get to the closest city." As you are on your way to Falkreath, the man comes along and begins to tell a story despite being injured. You're probably wondering why I'm injured. Well, it's quite a long tale. Give me 1 second. I should hold for now until we get to Falkreath. But if you say the city of Falkreath is still some distance away, I suppose I have time to tell you the story. It is the end of the third era of Tamriel's history. The Oblivion crisis ends with the ultimate defeat of Mehrunes Dagon and his banishment to the Deadlands by the hands of Martin Septim, and a hero only known as the Champion of Cyrodiil. But consequently, ending the Septim dynasty for Martin, many knew the Septim dynasty to be the strongest and most unifying in the Empire's history. But now that its line of Dragonborn emperors has ended, many saw this as their opportunity to break off and establish themselves as the next great power. What was that? You say you're Dragonborn? Oh, please, don't make me laugh. It hurts to laugh already as I'm trying to tell the story. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, in the distant lands of the Somerset Isles, one such faction took an opportunity. The Thalmor were quite instrumental in driving back the forces of the Prince of Destruction, and their reliability and popularity increased greatly as a result. Unfortunately, the Thalmor were known as very radical and sought to restore the order of Mer over men, believing that the elves were far more superior to the race of men in every way. Because of this overwhelming power and rise in the region, the Sapiarchs, an institution consisting of the most magical minds of the Isles, ceded power to the Thalmor, giving them full control only 22 years into the turn of the Fourth Era. They also renamed the Somerset Isles into Alinor, and subsequent coups would occur, with Valenwood suffering its fate in the Fourth Era. Thus, the Third Aldemary Dominion under Thalmor leadership was formed. To make things even worse, the moons of the planet disappeared sometime for a while in an event known as the Void Nights. This was a worry for the population, but it was much more impactful to the Khajiit, who used the phases of the two moons to influence much of their culture and beliefs. And when the moons were restored, the Thalmor took credit for the return, and it was not known if they had actually or simply had the knowledge when they would return and just used that to their advantage. Regardless of this method, this was done to get the realm of Elsewhere under Thalmor influence, as the Khajiit now hailed the Thalmor as their saviors, and imperial influence diminished as a result. Two client states of the Dominion would also be formed after a coup occurred in the Khajiit lands. It was quite the timing for the Thalmor, believe me, using this opportunity to slowly build their forces and their power while the Empire continues to suffer from diminishing influence and breakaway provinces. Even the establishment of the Mede dynasty due to the rise of Titus Mede, a Clovian warlord, was not enough to restore the Empire to what it once was. Provinces would continue to suffer from a series of coups and infighting amongst themselves that there was no unity whatsoever. It is safe to say that we entered very different territory with these events. Meanwhile, the Thalmor worked to make sure that their homeland was disposed of any signs and symbols of Imperial and Talos influence, including the hunt down and execution of every Blades agent that was present on their lands. The Thalmor, patient and cunning as they were, waiting nearly 100 years before they could finally make their move. Once they were ready, they sent an ambassador to the Emperor Titus Mede II and demanded every provision that would benefit the Thalmor, including tributes, lands, and especially the ban of Talos worship and the disbandment of the Blades, as the Thalmor did not believe that Talos should be counted among the gods, as he was a man. Even after attempts from the Elder Council to give in to their demands, since the Empire did not have the military power to take on the Thalmor, the Emperor refused their demands. Oh, I'm sure this made the Thalmor happy, as they knew the Emperor would not accept, so they revealed the contents of their so-called gift, the heads of every Blades that was killed in the Isles. You may be familiar with this event. It is known as the 30th of Frostfall in the year 171. If you are lucky enough to still find those knowledgeable of the events of the Great War, simply ask them about this date. They will know exactly what it means. But be careful, you may ruffle some feathers with this. Not long after, the Dominion made their move. Because of their control over the provinces of Valenwood and elsewhere, the Dominion launched a massive assault against the provinces of Cyrodiil and Hammerfell. An army led by the Lady Aranelia crossed Cyrodiil from Valenwood into Hammerfell, where an additional Thalmor army sailing from the Isles were looking to land in its southern coast in order to launch and occupy southern Hammerfell during the war. A second army, led by Lord Naarifin, marched straight for the Imperial City, seizing Anvil and Breville in his path, in order to launch an assault on the capital of the weakened Empire. Despite the Empire losing influence throughout the continent, there were still those who were loyal, as Skyrim had sent forth legions of soldiers in their aid, including a young Ulfric Stormcloak. Unfortunately, the aid was not enough to overcome the sheer force and influence the Thalmor had now gathered, and the Emperor was forced to retreat north to Skyrim, leaving the Imperial City in the hands of Lord Naarifin. In fact, Ulfric Stormcloak even got captured and tortured for information, and the Thalmor decided to release him, believing to be an asset for them. How they came to this conclusion, I'm not sure. There must have been a reason. Hope was lost, and even though the Dominion took control of the Imperial City, it did not end there. In fact, I was aware of what Naarifin's plan was. You see, I wasn't a soldier during the Great War, but I was just simply working inside the walls of the Imperial City. Since I was not seen as someone of great importance, I had access to the halls of the city, and I was able to avoid the hordes of Thalmor soldiers coming in. And I saw him, someone who had a very dark aura around his presence, and I overheard a conversation between him and one of his lieutenants. Lord Naarifin, congratulations on capturing the Imperial City, but we already had them at our mercy. Our objective was the conquest of Hammerfell. The Red Guards are proving to be more resistant to our attacks and are driving back our forces. Shouldn't we retreat and focus our resources to Hammerfell? When we have already gone this far into the Imperial City? I don't think so, Lieutenant. You will secure the perimeter as I make my way up to the tower and finish my true objective. This will ensure our control over all of Tamriel. Now go. It appeared that Naarifin had more than just a conquest in his mind, so I decided to follow him. Then, I noticed someone who looked like the Emperor make their way into the tower and confronted him. Then I saw it. An oblivion gate, deep in the heart of the Imperial City. Naarifin's plan was to summon hordes of Daedra to increase his army's power. This showed to me the lengths the Thalmor would go in order to complete their conquest. I would have stepped in if not for the Emperor, but as I remember it, the Emperor was wounded when he retreated. How could he have the strength to fight alone? That was unlike him. Perhaps it was someone else, but I'll never know. I was too scared for my life to get a closer look. Regardless, after the defeat of Naarifin, I decided to retreat, as there were still agents of Thalmor in the city, so I ran north. It so happens that I came across an encampment of the Emperor, where I overheard some people talking about the fall of Naarifin by the Emperor himself. But when I snuck around, I noticed the Emperor in a tent, tending to his wounds. Assessing his state, he could not have defeated such a powerful Thalmor general on his own, so I was sure it was someone else who defeated the general, and I bet the Emperor took credit. Knowing I had this knowledge, I could not return, so I fled for some time, which felt like weeks, months, or even years I had been on the run. I feel that if I had this knowledge and anyone discovered it, I would be in a lot of trouble, if not tortured, if not killed. One day, I came across a couple of agents who recognized me from the city, so they attacked me. I was able to defeat them, but I suffered injuries from it. I did notice a report from one of them. The war is slowly turning against us. The Empire has launched a counteroffensive and has reclaimed the Imperial City. The efforts on Hammerfell are also waning. The resistance of the Red Guards proved to be stronger than initially anticipated. The assault on Hegarth was a failure, with the forebear armies of Sentinel reinforced by once their political rival in Hegarth and drew back the Thalmor agents. Lady Aranelia's efforts at joining forces with Naarifin also failed, as she was stopped at Skaven by another strong force of Red Guards. Allocate more resources into the war effort, spread word to armies to mobilize and launch fresh attacks. Knowing these agents were far away from their post, they must have a larger detachment nearby. I found their camp and overheard some conversations. Can you believe it? The Empire was able to take back their city. Yes, that is true, but not without cost. We still had forces fighting and fresh troops ready to go. The Empire pretty much exhausted all their available resources just to take back their city. They don't have the force to launch a counteroffensive to drive us away from the province, so they came to terms with the White-Gold Concordat, which basically meant we were given the provisions we were asked for before this war even started. What fools. They could have easily prevented this war from happening. Here we are with the same result. The only difference is with both sides losing troops. I see. What of the province of Hammerfell? Ah yes, those Red Guards. I will admit, we underestimated them. While the Empire was willing to give southern Hammerfell to us, the Red Guard army thought differently and continued to fight. In fact, they were able to fight us to a stalemate, and we signed a treaty that forced us to withdraw from their lands. As annoying as that result is, it is a little respectable and shows that if we launch another attack, we cannot underestimate the Red Guards. The Imperials I am not worried about in the slightest. Now, how about another drink? To our victory, health, and our dominance across much of Tamriel. We will have agents installed in all provinces, making sure that the treaty is upheld. Anyone who defies our laws will be subject to Thalmor torture and imprisonment. We will also ensure that the Blades no longer exist. We will search every corner of Tamriel for every last one of them. Talos' influence will be gone forever, and a new age of Tamriel shall begin. Did you hear that? When I heard that part, I realized I had made a noise and the camp was alerted to my presence, so I had to run. And as I kept running north, I realized I found my way into Skyrim. And look at that, it eventually led me to you. Anyway, I'm exhausted, and I think we're almost there. Let's keep going. As you and the injured man make it to Falkreath, you come across a terrifying sight. Thalmor agents patrol the streets alongside Falkreath guards, keeping alert as if they are looking for something, or perhaps someone. One of the Thalmor agents spots the both of you, points in your direction, and alerts his fellow agents. There he is! Capture him! The both of you draw your weapons, the agents approach you, but right before you do battle, loud roars can be heard from a distance, getting louder and louder as the winds get stronger and a couple of dragons descend upon the city of Falkreath, looking to fight.